Hello everyone, it's GigaBeef here, and today we're going to take a look at a cheap loadout for the MP-153. I was asked recently what I would put together for under 100k, and this build came to mind straight away as shotgun kits are some of the most cost effective in Tarkov so long as you play around their strengths and weaknesses correctly. I am going to assume that you have access to the flea market and level 2 traders, because without getting to that stage you really just need to use level 1 trader guns from this video, get questing and use whatever armor that you can find. So in picking the shotgun we do have a few choices. These can be situational weapons, and I personally think that we should choose one that is properly semi-automatic, which is either the Jaeger 12, the 153 or the 155. Another couple of choices are the new shotguns added with 1212. The double barrel is extremely cheap at only 8k, but naturally only has 2 shots before you need to reload it, for which the animation is very long on the double barrel. The revolver shotty is another potential alternative, and the best part about this gun is that because of the revolver mechanism, it cannot actually malfunction in-game, so buy them from the flea to your heart's content if you don't care about the difference in accuracy. Between our original 3 semi-auto weapons, the 153 and the 155 are hand-loaded, whereas the Jaeger uses detachable mags. Although fully kitted, I do think that the Jaeger 12 is technically the better weapon because it can take 20 round drums. The 153 is amazing value because you can purchase it using the car keys barter, which can make it as cheap as 20k at times versus the 29,000 new price from Jaeger 2. Not having to buy any magazines makes this better firstly on cost, and also because you don't need to worry about rig space either. If we go to mod the weapon, there is a really nice sight that is very cheap that fits natively onto the 153, which is the ring sight from Jaeger 1 at 9k, and I have greatly enjoyed using this every time I take this shotgun into raid. Another mod that is useful on a budget are the muzzle brakes. From Skier 2, you can slap on the Remington Tactical Choke that removes 8% recoil for 3k, or alternatively you can use the Jaeger 1 and 2 combination of the 2k ME cylinder and the 4k GKO2 muzzle brake for minus 14% recoil at the expense of 2 ergonomics for 6,000 total. The Remington takes the vertical recoil from 255 base to 218, and the GKO2 takes it all the way down to 191. Finally, we want to increase the magazine size on the 153 to get something better than the 4 shell mags that it comes with. At Jaeger 2, you can buy the 133 8-round mag, which fits to the 153 and has much better ergonomics than the 153 versions, with only minus 2 ergo, which is definitely worth it for 2,000 rubles. So overall, this weapon build costs 36k, which is very cheap. 20k from the MP-153 Barter for keys, the 6k GKO2 muzzle, the 9k ring sight, and the 2k 8-round mag comes to 36,000 rubles. If we're using buckshot, you don't have to spend much on ammo at all. Usually in the past, I've recommended either express buckshot or magnum buckshot depending on if you want to go for headshots or leg matter, because express gives you no recoil disadvantage with 1 more pellet, i.e. 9 rather than the 8 from magnum, but magnum simply does a ton of damage if you're firing at people's legs. But with the new mechanics in 1212, the velocity slowdown and subsequent damage drop-off has become especially brutal for shotgun shells that rely on pellets. Given Express has 35 base damage, this means that you drop below the 35 head damage threshold at tiny distances, which would actually make Magnum Buckshot better at going for headshots too. There is some more research that needs to be done on this, and I expect some changes to come in the future, because you might think that some weapons can boost the initial velocity of various rounds, which is the case for all of the barrels on the 153, which in theory should extend the range of where you can achieve this with Express, because damage and pen would be higher than the listed values for the ammo. But from what I have tested so far, even extremely close shots do less than 35 damage per pellet, and the same for conventional ammo too, such as the Mosin rounds, and I am yet to find any instance of damage greater than the 0 distance value. This may well change in the future, so keep your eyes peeled. You could instead use 7mm buckshot, which has a base damage of 39, but even that won't deal 35 damage outside of about 5 to 10 meters, so I'd be using Magnum given the choice. Do be aware of the increased recoil though. One extra benefit of using Magnum Buckshot all the time is that if you come up against somebody geared with a face shield, you can always just go for the legs and you'll be doing serious damage and hopefully enough to kill them. In terms of costs, Magnum Buckshot is 66 rubles at Jaeger 2. This means that it's extremely cost effective and at most is 3k for a stack of 50 magnums, but you won't need more than 30 on your person probably, which is only around 2,000 rubles. One other really good option is AP-20 slugs, although as these are not available on the flea anymore, you have to either have Jaeger 4 to buy them for 562 rubles, or the Workbench 3 where the craft comes to about 625 rubles per round, so I've not included these in this build. For the rest of the kit, we'll want a headset, some armor, and some meds. For headsets, let's get the cheapest that we can, which is usually the 13k GSSH. We did say that we wanted budget after all. You can check the category itself to see what the cheapest headset is, so if you don't want to use this one, you can scroll through and pick the second cheapest, which is usually the Opsman. You can usually buy the MMAC rig at 48k from the Barter, with one sewing kit which are normally about 28,000 and one ripstop which is about 20k. I've spoken about this rig a lot as it's my new favourite budget class 4 at Ragman 2. So overall, we have 36k for our weapon, the 153, 2k for the ammo magnum buckshot, where we're going to keep 8 in the weapon, 1 in the chamber, and another stack of 20 or so in our pockets, 13,000 rubles for the GSSH headset, 48k for the MMAC rig, 3k for a balaclava, whichever one you can choose, and 11k for meds, the 7k car kit, the 2k army bandage, and 2k cat tourniquet. This comes to 113,000 rubles. Okay, so I lied slightly about it being 100k exactly. However, this is pretty effective and only overspends by 13,000 rubles. But if you really did want to cost save from here, you can firstly not use class 4 armor, instead either bartering for the 6B23 with a propane if they're going for less than 30k on the flea market, or buying the press armor from the fleet directly at around the same amount. I personally don't think this is worth saving 18,000 rubles, but it's up to you. You could also not buy the ring sight for 9k from Jaeger. I think it helps with target acquisition because shotguns jump quite a bit when you fire, and with the default iron sights you can only just see over the barrel. We also didn't buy any painkillers, but again I'll leave that up to you as to whether you want to take a cheap 6k analgin ones in your pocket or have something more long term in the secure container. Ideally you'd have the injector case as we mentioned in the last build, so you can use a morphine, a propofol or an adrenaline as you see fit at any time, but without losing them if you die. Without the injector case, something like Vaseline, an ammo stack, splints, and an AFAK should give you enough coverage to at least get out of the situation alive and leave the raid, given that we haven't taken a CMS. Ultimately, the secure container choice is map and goal dependent, so it can be flexible depending on what you think you might need in each session. Overall, this weapon is pretty good and gives you options to one-tap any player not using a face shield, or flesh damage those that are. Clearly, you'd rather fight players closer to you rather than further away, so use that to your advantage, and it's not going to work in every situation, which you just can't expect from a kit this cheap. However, I do think that this covers most of the bases that we require to perform decently given the cost, and it could be a good one to run for either looting, questing, or cheap close range killing. So as usual, if you learned something, please consider dropping a like and a sub. To see when I'm streaming, you can follow me on Twitter and Twitch. Check out our podcast, Scav Talk, in the links below. And with all that said, I'll see you next time, and as always, have fun in your raids.